on in their opener, and they unfortunately come a little bit short. United States stronger over France in this group, and so it was the Japanese who take on Sweden, and they are victorious by the 4 points. So that's where it leads Sweden and France at the moment. So by right, as I say, in Pool B, United States of America and Japan sitting 1 and 2. They would go through after 3 matches, if that remains the same, through to the semifinals. Sweden is a team that in their Paralympics 4 years ago, they finished 6th position. They have a ranking of 6th overall coming into this particular competition in Rio by the International Wheelchair Rugby Federation. But our 2 officials here today, the German Schreiner and Schmichak, the Polish official, will be in charge of this one as the teams are just set to be introduced officially into the arena. It's a mixed gender sport, is wheelchair rugby. The Americans, they are the #1 ranked team coming into this one. They have been right at the top of the podium in wheelchair rugby. Can they return to it though? There is lots of competition in and amongst. You would expect that there are probably 5 teams realistically that could medal in Rio. They're Chuck Aoki. He's their #1 scorer, the one to be most likely to be carrying the ball in the majority today as he comes out. He had 16 goals in the opener, but right through this American lineup, they've got depth. They've also had a little bit of a change of personnel. This player here, he's outstanding. Josh Brewer just coming out on the floor there, and then rounded out by Kory PUDERBAUGH. What a story for PUDERBAUGH. He was born in Poland, and not long after being born, he was in an orphanage there and then adopted, taken to the United States, and here he finds himself a Paralympian of great promise in the future. Coming right across, he's got tremendous emotion, tremendous vigor about him. He's also, I would say, the running mate to Aoki as the 1-2 punch, but Wheeler also brings that dimension equally. There's Gumbert, the coach. He's been in charge for a while now. Took him through that last Paralympic cycle since London. And then Jansson, a very clever player for Sweden. He's a 1.0 classification, and that's very useful in this sport. The lower your level of function is, the lower numerical value apportion, and that's what gives you your classification. So you have from a 0.5 to a 3.5, the highest level of function in wheelchair rugby. 4 players on the field to play at any one time, and the total numerical value you have available to you to be out on the floor is 8. So that's spread across the 4 players. If you have a female player, you get an extra 0.5, but this Swedish lineup, Sandberg really #6. He's their 3.5. He's right there, as you see. He's the one to be looking for. And then their final player coming out, Tomas HJERT, with 18 goals in that opener against Japan. There is the Canadian coaching Sweden. He has also coached Canada prior as well at the turn of the century. These Paralympic Games, well, it's just the 5th time we have seen the wheelchair rugby competition, now for the national anthems.
Ladies and gentlemen, the anthem of the United States of America.
Senhoras e senhores, o hino dos Estados Unidos da América.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's make some noise.
The Stars and Stripes and Sweden in yellow and blue. They acknowledge each other right here at center court, right at the center line of this field of play. Both the coaches equally as well. As you see the handshakes and the acknowledgement of each other. This is a must-win match, really, for Sweden. They weren't able to get the points against Japan, but of course, as much as anything, they're going to have to keep it tight because depending how that final match plays out, but realistically, this is do or die for Sweden, even though it's only their second game, and that's the nature of this Paralympic tournament. So they come into it, and you've got to come in fast as Gumbert goes through the final chatting with his side. And they do have just that distribution of youth, experience, and also quality. You're seeing the opening four there. It looks as though it's Wheeler and AOKI who are going to be the 1-2 punch in this one. But he's got a few different combinations that work exceedingly well for him, Gumbert. And for Sweden, they went with HJERT and SANDBERG in their opening matchup, and that couldn't quite get things rolling as they wanted. There you see that Tomas HJERT, the number 22, and also SANDBERG, their number 6. You'll see on the floor, number 13, Stefan Jansson. He is their joint captain on this side. He and Mikael NORLIN, the veteran, 42 years of age, and there Benoit Lebrecq, who, as they say, had been the assistant coach with the Canadian program right through Athens and then into the World Championships, and then a part of them when they go on and medal in Beijing. But the United States of America, this is their lineup, and they've got experienced Wheeler, McBride, 2 veteran players. It's Brewer and PUDERBAUGH, the 2 youthful components now, 20 years of age and 21 respectively, are in the charges of this man here. And this, as you see, even before they even get started, this is one of these signature moments for the U.S. before the game and equally at the end. I see it's been adopted also by Brazil in this competition. ADASZAK, SANDBERG, Jansson, and HJERT to get the opening start. So just to round out that particular lineup and how it works, ADASZAK is a 0.5, SANDBERG is a 3.5, and Jansson is a 1.0, and Tomas HJERT a 2.5. That adds up to their 8 points on the floor. And Chuck, AOKI, Regier, COHN, and also Brewer will be the opening four for the U.S. So there they are, as you see on the floor. The officials are set and ready as well. And this, day number 2 in the wheelchair rugby, just about to tip off. It'll be taken by Sweden, and that will be exchanged as we start each one of these 8-minute periods throughout the match. So there are 4 of them. This is Tomas HJERT, number 22. Immediately he is locked up. That was AOKI trying to keep an eye on him. They're very similar in their mobility, in their size, stature, and even their temperament, how they play this game. It's SANDBERG waiting for the feed internally. Both HJERT and SANDBERG receive or have their impairments as a result. They are acquired of accidents, and those were road accidents, and those were both in leading up to 2012. They competed at those Paralympic Games in Rio. They've called in London, they've called a timeout here, and they've started to feel as though they were running out of time, and they just couldn't get the look that they wanted. So they have a 40-second shot clock, and they must advance the ball. They did that quickly over the center line. Now you see they get the extra, as a result of the timeout, 15 seconds now remaining. So they can occupy this scoring area offensively for 10 seconds, but if they're there for longer, that's a good feed in. It's going to be HJERT who scores, and that's important for Sweden. So you see the use of that timeout was effective. It allowed them just to think about how they wanted to reinsert this ball. Wheeler with the offload. This might get away. AOKI is going to do very well to catch this up. I think he might just do it. There he does. Just ahead of that line. He's got to have that ball in his possession. And you see he just catches a little bit of that post as well. You see it's mobile, very temporary, and as he whips down the floor, it'll be set back into perfect position there by the referee. And the inbound, it will be AOKI who gets that one. So the Americans confident that in a wheel race, AOKI is going to catch up to that ball. SANDBERG, though, all the way down, takes the availability of the open space, and he's across the line. So the opening touch allows for the opening score for Sweden, and then the answer back. And this really will be just to and fro between these two sides, but this releasing out for the youngster Josh Brewer. And he takes it across the line. So this is a different starting lineup than we saw in day one of this competition for the United States. And Gumbert very watchfully looking on. This could get to become a difficult matchup for the Americans come the end. Sweden are going to have to play a little bit better, obviously, than they did against Japan. But right now, this seems to be the best unit LeBrecq has got out there for Sweden, this combination of Sandberg. And this is HJERT. They're suggesting he double dribbles on that one. So he's got to bounce the ball or pass it every 10 seconds in order to keep it alive. And he's got 12 seconds in which to get it over that center line. And he just ran out of time there. So AOKI, these are the differences in a game. When you change this possession right here, the Americans will expect to score. The probability is about 80% realistically. And AOKI is going to feed to the backside. They've just got it in time, and that was well taken. In fairness, though, by Brewer. That wasn't easy. He made it look easy. He's got the full use of his left arm there, but his impairment on his right arm without the hand, that made it difficult to recover that ball and make sure he had it securely. Sandberg is going to go over the top. He has ADASZAK a little bit closer, but he's got to move. He's running out of time. HJERT doesn't see it. And this, again, a little bit of a mistake, and AOKI allows that to go out of play. And once you get stationary, and particularly your teammates turn their back to you, you can see Sandberg having that discussion. And he's feeling a little bit forced, makes that play, and you can see it already in his eyes. He knows that that's not what they need to be executing. And these mistakes, they will prove costly. Here is AOKI all the way around the end, and now United States have doubled the Swedes with a 4-2 margin. So you just saw those two plays there. They will come to tell, because ultimately it will mean that the United States, who fell behind after those first couple exchanges, they expect to lead now from the front. This will be taken by Jansson, and a score. He's their captain, a 1.0, and he can become a long option for them, for Sweden, and just get out there, take some pressure off of both Sandberg and HJERT. And it's just a deliberate start here. Brewer has got the defensive player with his caster wheel right in his bumper, but AOKI takes it. Can he be caught up by Jansson? He won't, and across the line. AOKI from Minnesota. He's got a teaching degree from university there. Begins his wheelchair rugby in 2007. And he, like many of these athletes, inspired by that documentary series Murder Ball that was released in 2005 about the build-up between the Americans and the Canadians in that Athens battle in 2004. And there AOKI again. He has taken it, and that will give him 3 goals so far. So LeBrecq has seen enough, and he elects to call a timeout. We're not 3 minutes gone, and they've gone from being in the lead to now finding themselves 3 points adrift. So just clarifying those impairments, both Sandberg was in a car accident. That was in 2012, so he did incredibly well to participate in London at those Paralympic Games. And for HJERT, it was a matchup in the Swedish First Division, playing ice hockey in 2010, that he had his accident acquired, and now a Paralympian twice. They both participating in London in those games, finishing 6th in Sweden in that competition. But this now, NORLIN out, and he'll score. He is the co-captain jointly with Jansson, and a little bit of a different look now as he battles to take it across the line. And this, just that quick timeout, PUDERBAUGH with the launching play. So he replaces Brewer out to AOKI, and that's kind of the the way they are constructed, United States, AOKI seen as the mainstay, and they work in and around him in the combinations. He's their 25-year-old, and expect to really see AOKI as a fixture in this American side for a generation. And this will be the need for an adjustment. Andreas COHN, the 30-year-old, currently just getting some support. And you're looking at Chuck Melton. He's got that full beard going. Almost looks a little Amish with that one. I compared it actually to an Abraham Lincoln beard. And you see the coaching staff there that has the red and blue in his goatee. And obviously matching each other step for step with their facial hair. And this now will be Sweden to launch it forward, up and into a tight place. Oh, AOKI is so quick and clever. He comes away from that trouble zone and just puts it right on the board as quick as that. So skillful, so well controlled, and what they're doing is they're forcing Sweden to make long plays and then ultimately turning it over, and you're seeing this match, even in the early stages, starting to show a separation between these two sides. So the Americans with 2 scores. There's been 4 different scorers for Sweden already, and that bodes well. It's just you do in this particular sport, you need a front runner. You need basically a horse that you go to, your thoroughbred, who is going to carry the mail. And generally that is the higher classifications that do that. Up, and it's into NORLIN. He's come in and been very handy indeed for Sweden. So he takes that one on the one bounce, right into his clutches. He's a 2.5. So the more you can get out of a 2.5, obviously it gives you more options on the floor. But AOKI, he is driving in the fast lane right now. And now depending on where you come from, if it's in New York, the Long Island Expressway, that's the LIE. In other parts of the world, in Toronto, they call it the HOV lane, the high occupancy vehicles. So he right now is just traveling freely in one of those lanes, wherever you come from. Pretty sure they're a commonality all over the world, but they're going to call a timeout now for NORLIN. He has seen enough, and you see exactly what LeBrecq thinks about things. This is a match that if they don't turn things quickly here, they can no longer afford to make mistakes. And he's trying his best to express his point. He finishes positively, but this is make or break time, and this is only in the first quarter. Swedish fans, they equally, like all the nations, traveling well and enjoying their time in Rio. And as I said, I have really noticed the difference even in the length of days and in the temperatures increasing even since between the Olympic Games and the Paralympic Games. And well, that's a great opportunity to be in this part of the world when warm weather, even warmer, comes across the Atlantic Ocean right here on the coast. Is Rio de Janeiro. Once the captain, or the capital city rather, the captain of Brazil, fair enough, but it is Brasilia. Now, some 2.5-hour flight from here, that is officially the capital city of Brazil. PUDERBAUGH gets himself on the board. And the reason for moving the capital city, well, they just thought having their main administration buildings right on the shoreline was maybe a little bit of a risk, and so it's been in a few different places, the capital in Brazil. Interesting country indeed. They have really embraced these Paralympic Games as AOKI will take this and drive it again. He is, basically he's on his own road right now, and he can be taking it wherever he wants to travel. He is just piling up the goals. He's got an even 7 now. And I wouldn't bet against him to be getting double digits. It's actually up to 8, my apologies. They've just updated it. And he could be up to double digits before the end of this period for sure. So Tomas here, the ice hockey player, and now the wheelchair rugby player for Sweden. He'll back away from this, AOKI. He's trying to wrap it up. They've got to be careful with that. They've turned it over. This is better for Sweden. And if they can score here, which you expect they should, and if I was putting a probability on how likely they are to score, I wouldn't say it's obviously by the scoreline as certain as the Americans, but this is a conversion they have to have. So Sweden have called the timeout. They know they need to calm down. You can see sometimes when the play and the pressure increases that they just seem to freeze and maybe not activate as quickly, and the decision making has been a part of the disparity we see in the scoreline. NORLIN is back and rolling and rocking. He will be. He'll get the inbound here from ADASZAK right into his hands, and he's telling ADASZAK, go and provide the screen, and I will work off the back of you. You can create the waves, I'll ride the wake. But he's locked up on the far side, and now again NORLIN just finds himself having to be his own mechanic. It will be the bench officials that come across and just get the help of his bench. He's actually needing a replacement of the wheel, as you can see. Now, these wheels are a little bit different. They have the protection on the outside. They've got that cover on the spokes. Otherwise, the spokes would just be damaged all the time. And they are obviously protecting from that damage because this is a full contact sport, is wheelchair rugby. You see the marking on these chairs. They really are, they're their number one tool, as well, it goes without saying that, but you can see that they are battle tested and battle worn, each one of them. They probably can go back and look at the spots and know where they were hit and where the contact came from. AOKI will take this one across the line. He scores again, so that takes him to 9. And he's going to be well traveled, I expect, through double digits by the end of 2 more minutes and 15 seconds. So a 5-point spread. NORLIN just without that speed. PUDERBAUGH has to throw on the brakes. He catches him up now. He's the youngster. And he just stays right with NORLIN. ADASZAK with that long bumper on his chair, just trying to separate PUDERBAUGH from NORLIN. And if he can let his captain have some room, they know that they can score from here, but he's got to bounce it to keep it alive. AOKI equally provides the cross block. Can he get across the line? He does. And just inside that post, AOKI with the last attempt to try and flick that ball free. See if he couldn't just knock it out of NORLIN's possession. There you see, as soon as the 2 wheels, he did well to keep it. And that was close. AOKI was wondering whether or not that might have been potentially a loose ball conversion, which would not have counted. You have to have the ball entirely within your possession. And now you're seeing MELTON, who's coming out. And the play from the Americans is in. All the way back. It goes from, well, I think it was PUDERBAUGH who advanced that one all the way up to AOKI. We've got some different personnel, though, out on the floor for the United States. So AOKI there now with his double digits. It's HJERT still out there. COLLIN, NORLIN, and ADASZAK for Sweden. And now you're looking at Josh Wheeler into the match, as well as MELTON with AOKI. And are they calling that a 10-second violation? Also, it's BUTLER out there, the 26-year-old. So we'll just see officially what has been assessed there. So it is a foul against the Americans. And so that is going off, and that is Wheeler who's taken that one. So he has been through this Paralympic experience before. He's 36 years of age, equally a part of that silver medal winning side in the Pan Am Games in Toronto a year ago. The Americans with bronze that they take in London in 2012. But back and forth, NORLIN just can't really, with the speed, get around some of these faster American players. So he has to just find the right angle. He's outweighted the Americans, and they almost just let him have his chance to score. And there it is. So with 8.9 seconds, so there's 48.9. He's going to allow the Americans the full use if they wanted to of 40 seconds, which for Sweden, they expect that maybe they will have a chance to score with that remaining bit of time. And what you're seeing there, the Americans are trying to score quickly. so that even if Sweden tried to use the entirety of the remaining 40 seconds, they would have still had one last possession, but it didn't happen that way, and 33 seconds remains for them on the first period. And LeBrecq watching in, it's proving that it's going to be a tall order today for Sweden. They've done well. They've had a few different looks about their lineup in this opening period. Sandberg and HJERT. Now NORLIN comes in with COLLIN. And it's HJERT just waiting to see if he can't score, but he's going to have to probably pass it inside. He's got no room on this near side in which to advance it. He's going to go long side over to NORLIN. Well taken, and he will just get across the line with 2.7 seconds. That's a great passing play. Equally, the catch is the most important element of it, but the pass had to be precise and on the money, and it couldn't have been too far ahead of him. There's a big hit there at the end from Andreas COLLIN coming in, and he stops MELTON right in his tracks. But it is the opening 8 minutes now in the bank, and the Americans rolling strong as well in day 2 in the wheelchair rugby. It's USA 14, Sweden 10 after the first period. And the stats in the opening match of turnovers in Sweden, they are 6-1, and that's really going to hurt you. The steals as well for the Americans, they get 3 more steals, and those are the 2 columns that really count up to why the score is as it is. In fairness, Sweden's doing well to keep it as tight as they have, with it only being a 4-point differential given those stats. So they can build from here, but they're going to need to start even better and cut down on those efficiency mistakes. AOKI had an outstanding first 8 with 11 goals. So confirmation of that score as we are ready and waiting. It's the Americans who will inbound to start this second period of play. And it's in. In this opening possession, just looking for an option. So out there, you're seeing it is Chuck MELTON and number 10 as well, Wheeler on the floor. But NEWBY is the new player out there. And then you're looking at a different construction, number 7 as well, Jason Regier. He is the joint captain in this lineup with Chuck AOKI, but it's an opening score for JANSSON for Sweden, and that's answering right back, just keeping this within checking distance. So you see the referee just counting down. They've got to advance that ball in quickly. That's really well taken. So you take it over the top to the backside and into the hands of Wheeler. He loves the physicality of the sport, plays it at top level. Chewing the gum there on the way back, and sometimes you wonder the way these athletes get jolted sometimes in their chairs, whether or not that's the best thing to be doing. They could just as easily have that lodged in surprise and probably create a little bit of an issue. But this now is across the line for JANSSON. He will take it just into his clutches before traveling. So you'll see these players with these bumpers in the backs of their chairs equally make contact from behind as they do from the front. And the marks all over the wheels, all over these chairs. They are like little mini tanks. And if they do fall, you'll see that's how and why they need the help to get them back upright again. They're just so heavy in the metal and the way they're constructed. Yes, they're designed to be mobile in order to get in and around players, but they also need to protect the athletes because they go into high traffic areas, and particularly if you're both coming at each other with the same speed, it's going to leave a mark. This for Sandberg. No, he's back out on the floor. And he gets it into Jensen, so this within 3 now. So that important change of possession. This is a time where Sweden have to really lock down. They can't fall asleep for a moment, and this, they're gonna go in, try to get this ball. Can they go 50-50? They're gonna assess Sandberg with the contact on the arm, and that really, that hurts, because that is your one chance, other than forcing the Americans to make a passing mistake, is to try to get a hand on the ball and create it as a 50-50 scenario, and hopefully maybe dislodge it, or equally have it go to the possession arrow. And when you go in, you immediately get assessed with a penalty against. Well, it's an easy score, just like this coming up for the Americans, because they have 4 against 3 over Sweden on the field of play right now. So this is all about managing the clock, the scoring clock, keeping Sandberg off the floor as well for as long as they can, and allowing the American to go across and to attend to him, so that he hasn't got free reign to come out on the floor and do whatever he would like, and he's immediately got a player with him. So NEWBY will score that one. So now for the United States, that's 6 different scores, 4 for Sweden. Jensen with the 1-2 punch with Sandberg. Now he's rolling. Sandberg can fly. And he's a 3.5. He was named the best 3.5 class player at the 2015 European Championships in Finland. And he could be that guy. But he has to really carry it and have a career game to beat the Americans when they're at their height. And they have to be sharp at both ends of the field here. And he went in last time, Sandberg got the foul. He's done it this time. He's come up, but it's perfectly fallen for the Americans. And that's heartbreaking. He did it cleanly and got it out there. And almost really, like a frog might search his tongue out to get a fly, he just got to dart in there quickly to try to get it. He had done enough, but he could not, in fact, recover it. And the fly got away, and right back, it was the Americans who picked it up, and they converted to take that 4-goal lead again. They really have to be sharp trying to steal the ball. It's I'd say a success rate of about 20% going in to try and get it loose. The other 60% of the time, you're probably going to pick up a foul, and then maybe 20% of the time, you'll get a jump ball or a possession arrow opportunity. See, it's been dislodged. Here comes now the United States. Can they pick it up? They do well. They advance it, and then the linking play up as quick as this, and USA have taken it away right back at Sweden. And they are clinical, so efficient. This you're looking at SCATURRO, the 37-year-old. So this different lineup right now. We've seen probably 4 different looks from the U.S. so far in the personnel. That's a great spin move, but to keep balanced, Wheeler. Sandberg does well, though, to get right back at it. And he will score, but they're going to have to find a way again to dispossess or to break up this play on the inbound. It's NEWBY who'll take the ball. So they've done well. You see NEWBY just shuffling with the head nod there, saying, listen, that's where I want you to go. It's given right back to him. It's the contact, though, that will stun the player, maybe equally jolt them into not being as secure with the ball. And it's just a little too calm and sedate, Sweden. They'll reach in here. Need to be careful. They've done well, the Americans. 1-2, and they're out. And really, it's a case of 1-2, buckle my shoe. They have scored another goal just as quick as that. And that's just ball movement, boom, right into Sandberg. Just lowering the wheelchair bumper right into him. HJERT can advance it forward. He does, and out will go Jensen. So this combination of Sandberg, Jensen, and HJERT is very effective. But it's defensively. Can they unhook the wagon of this American train? Once they get rolling, they're a side that gets the prevailing wind at their back. They are hard to slow down. So the Americans with that timeout, just sensing that there had been a little bit of a change in the access from Sweden, had sharpened their pencil and got down to business, found a way to maybe break them up a little bit. But just as soon as they do, you see how the Americans can come right back and play that physical game and get the advantage back. So NORLIN in a wheel race is not going to win it straight up. He's going to have to employ guile, savvy. He needs to be careful on that sideline. This is a great pass. If it's into Jansson, he takes it. There, that's outstanding. World-class movement of the ball. As a Jansson, he just anticipates it and goes up. NORLIN advances it into an area. And that's just all trust. You expect that your teammates are going to get to a place. But if you just leave it in too open an angle, the Americans are faster. And they will recover it. So you have to be sharp. AOKI out here with PUDERBAUGH. And this is a different looking lineup now for the U.S. Lee FREDETTE is out there now too. They see themselves more dominant, more in control of the game with this combination of PUDERBAUGH and AOKI. And I would agree. But you can't really have players out there for the entirety of the match. I've seen it close before, but not for the full 32 minutes. This has been a little bit sloppy from Sweden. NORLIN coming in, keeps a pretty level head about it though. He and Jansson, they don't get too frustrated with one another. The idea was to offload it for him, but he was coming with speed and just couldn't get the ball under control. Up and over the top. Once again, it's that speed and power game. Anticipating each other, and a 1-2 punch. AOKI and PUDERBAUGH are as good as there are in the world. Particularly with PUDERBAUGH, who likes to play physically. He is that element that realistically, the team that's going to win the gold in this tournament is going to have 3 dominant players capable of providing. You're going to have your 1-2 punch, but you're going to have a third player that can equally score and hold things together. And that will go the length of the floor. It's been turned over. So with the Swedish side, NORLIN is that number 3 to SANDBERG and JANSSON. They just a couple more times, as you saw with the statistics at the end of the first period. They just turned it over more, and the Americans have been able to get those steals. This for PUDERBAUGH right into his clutches. He has it. And across this line. Great speed and power. He's got such determination and hunger you can see in every play that he makes. There's nothing that he does at half tempo. It's all full throttle. An inspiration for sure. And his journey, an immense one. It will be a new score for the United States. It's Chad COHN who gets the score there as it comes in. So just they're now going officially onto the system, but it's an 8-point spread. This for PUDERBAUGH is taken out away SANDBERG's angle to that left post. And where will it come again? He's just suggesting to Jansson, come back out, give me a different look, because this PUDERBAUGH guy is driving me nuts. He is right on me, and he's not giving me anything. He's going to put him right in the post is what he'll do. And did they call timeout before? He got pushed out, and it's a change of possession, and you see the frustration from SANDBERG. He knows exactly that that was not the way it was intended, and that they were thinking it needed to be played out. So he's turned it over 5 times already today. SANDBERG on his own. And just to give you an example of Chuck AOKI as his counter measure for the United States, he has stolen it 5 times. So there's a real 10-point differential between the two. And that is really where these games are won and lost. New blood out on the floor now for the United States. This is Josh Brewer. And a timeout being called. They were getting hemmed into that corner there. And that was in front of their own bench. They just couldn't get rolling. So a timeout here just to allow this to be reinserted from the sidelines. It's up and over the top, and you see the end-around movement like much in American football. And this is a hybrid of a number of different sports, nicknamed murder ball. But it's probably a little bit of a different feel about that, suggesting it's combat chess nowadays with bumps and bruises. Probably not as sensational as the use of what is kind of a fictional term, murder ball. It's also a famous, well, a movie that was produced, but not entirely about this sport, but the documentary really, Murder Ball, initially. As I referred to earlier, that brought about a lot of focus to this sport, but the physicality and that element to it is particularly attractive, and the players wouldn't be playing it unless they loved it. You'd be surprised almost how the scoring of goals, the top players in the sport, well, they score a ton. So you get a chance to rock somebody's world with a big hit and knock them out of the chair. Well, those are more rare, those moments, and they really love it. And it's great to watch. It's great theater, great entertainment. They're safe and well secured in these protective wheelchairs, in fairness. JARSSON is just waiting to see that the American is going to be escorted out of that penalty box area as soon as he crosses the line. So 1 minute and 40 remaining in this half. There he comes out as Brewer. And it's not easy getting out. Not only is it bad enough that you get put into some solitary confinement over there, but we're gonna make it tough for you, even when you do want to get out and you are being released. So 8 points now, and the Americans are really feeling in control of this. You saw the urgency coming from LeBrecht, the Canadian coach of Sweden. Early stages, when it was closer, they needed to really act, but goal by goal and chip by chip, they're being broken down by the mighty USA. That was pretty close there. That was a 1-2 touch. You need to make sure you receive it fully when you're in the field of play. And Brewer, I don't know if there's a player who's any cleaner in his movement that I have seen in the opening 8 performances so far in this tournament. He's as nimble and as balanced and as sharp with his lines, his stopping, his starting, his change of directions. Maybe I would say the Brazilian player Braz as well is also outstanding. There's a lot of great players. Riley Batten, of course, with Australia, and the Canadian Zach Medal is also very capable, quick, but it's the speed. It's just how able he is to control this ball, even as a youngster, as the Americans are going to try to manage this remaining portion of the first half. Brewer is going to come around the end. He's got to be clean, though, from here. He gets pushed out, though. Well taken by NORLIN. He does the job, just shunting him and knocking that post off. And that, obviously, a design play. You want to get into those areas. But if you get too close, they can use themselves as a little bit of a tow truck coming in and forcing you out of play. And that's worked out well. Brewer has knocked that off the Swedish player as it comes in. And last touch, and really unbeknownst to him, it was Brewer just reached in with that darting left hand. So you see from the elbow down his impairment on his right side. So he is fully reliant on that left arm. He can take the ball in control under his right arm, but obviously he uses that as his dominant side. So this, you see the shot clock counting down. It's officially now 15 seconds. So disparity between the game clock and the shot, and they almost look happy enough. He's going to have to bounce this ball every 10 seconds. It keeps it alive. They're just trying to kill this here, and that's exactly what they do. They call a timeout, so they'll get 15 more seconds to return to the field of play. They've got substitutions now coming in, and this is a true move from the Americans. It's not particularly entertaining or thrilling, but it's just about using this notion of chess and the countermeasure against your opponent. As the Mexican wave comes around, the crowd, it'll build throughout the day. AOKI inside this last 10. He has got the room, and he'll drive it across the line for 4.2. Sweden will have to work quickly. They've done. Has it gone off the head of the American? It has. It's still for Sweden. 2.2. They could score from here. But they're going to have to work very quickly indeed. NORLIN lobbing it through AOKI with the double hands up, and they've turned it over. It was too long for the entrance into play. And up now for AOKI. He might score again. He does. That shows you just how game management works in your favor. Not only do they call that timeout and get the last 15 seconds, but that turnover, and that is really outwitting your opponent and showing the world who's watching this how to play some world-class wheelchair rugby. It's a master stroke at the end from the United States, and they have punished the Swedish mistakes in this opening 16 minutes. It's USA 29, Sweden 19 at halftime. This is Group B action in the wheelchair rugby, and it's a must-win game already for Sweden. They've got it all to do in this second half coming up. They'll break for 5 minutes, and they won't go to their changing rooms. They'll just have a little bit of a breather there. 13 turnovers for Sweden. That'll kill you quicker than a bullet. And the steals, the Americans are in like thieves in the night with 7 of those in the opening 16. Both teams just take a moment to breathe, recollect their thoughts, and reflect on the opening half. We'll join you for the second half in just a moment. So that confirmation, if you're just joining, this is the wheelchair rugby. This is the preliminary round in day 2 of the competition. It just takes the last 5 games of these Paralympics, and this really is, it's a high octane sport, but right now the Americans are snuffing out the Swedes and taking the life right out of their approach. The building is alive and well, lots of spirits and feeling as there has been throughout the entirety of these Paralympic Games. We've already suggested this is the second most successful Paralympic Games across all of the sports ever. Beijing still being regarded as the most as far as ticket sales. But the spirit for sport in Brazil is alive and well, and particularly the Paralympics, equally to the Olympics, as it will be the Americans who will answer right back and keep that 10-point margin. McBride with his first goal and answering that score. So Jansson with 6, NORLIN with 6, and both SANDBERG with 3 and HJERT with 5. Those are the 4 scorers. So those are the players that they go to, Sweden. But it's AOKI with 14, and you almost get lost as you see. I'm watching you, says Lebrecht. That is the international sign language. Let's make sure we're looking at what we're doing here. Let's not continue to make mistakes that we can not recover from. What I mean by that is the Americans are clinical. They just make you pay. They show no mercy, and it's not in a nasty way. It's just they're winners. They want to win, as every one of the teams do here, but some just a little bit more have the opportunity because they've got more depth and more of a balance throughout their entire lineup. Sweden getting counted in right now. They're going to bat it forward. It's well taken by NORLIN. And he just throws on the brakes, turns back. Good feed up to Andreas COHN. He looked as though he's going to go over the top. He elects not to with HJERT. He passes it off. Can it get away? HJERT's got to recover it. He does so. And he's going to get work, though, from the inside. As right up against him is Wheeler. Wheeler has got 3 goals. Here comes another American, Chuck Melton. And they all come to the party. They're going to get boxed in over here, Sweden. They could find themselves in a tight lane. Andreas COHN with the offload. It's in. That's a good play to Tomas HJERT this time, and that's a great goal from Sweden. The way they worked it around, the way they found a way out of their problem, and ultimately a solution in motion, whilst also keeping their awareness the whole time. But if you've got to work that hard for each one of your goals, as you see the Americans almost just take an easy score there, but it gets away from Melton, and he can say, just let's keep calm. Don't have to rush that pass and get into something flashy and flamboyant. We just need to steadily go about our work, and we'll probably find a better return at the end of 32 minutes than trying to get a little bit too sexy with our play. NORLIN, he'll take it across the line, and that's steady and dependable, much like the way he is built. Big pair of shoulders on him, and a pretty formidable frame. NORLIN, the 42-year-old captain of Sweden. He's got strength and obviously some more weight as well, but it's the advancement of another play, this time for Adam SCATURRO. And SCATURRO will take his 4th goal for USA. And you see Lebrecht, he's experienced enough to know that this is a match that could be ultimately for Sweden. It's the determination of really competing at these Paralympic Games in Rio for a medal. What's happening over this next 6 minutes and now under will set things one way or the other. 10 points, the challenge you have with it, it's 10 different possessions. It's not just 5 like in basketball, and it will be just 1 across the line now, but it's well taken there. It is good play. It's quality ball movement, as NORLIN now has an 8-pack of goals on the board. Immediately right on them, though, like bees to honey. And it's the foul that has come against Sweden. So you can play physical, and you can bring it, as long as it's not behind the axle of a player. From behind, they get a little bit more protective of that, but equally, players can get hit from behind. There'll be no penalty. You'll see it as they just try to drive players off the field sometimes. But the Americans now with COHN in the penalty box area. They have the ball. They're just waiting to see when they want to score here. NORLIN is tracking. It's one-on-one. It's kind of these guys doing their own thing right now as Wheeler will take it across the line. That's his fourth. It's good work, but they have to equally move quickly, and he does just get there before the 12 seconds is fully expired across that center line. But now he's slowed up again. You see, it's heavy work though for COLLIN, just trying to get himself moving and match the speed. He's a 2.5. It's lofted into NORLIN. The Americans with this playing time have done well. What a passing play! Is he going to score? He does, JART. And if JART falls there and doesn't get across the line with two wheels, that goal will not count. That this is going right on your tippy toes, finding a way just to come down and make sure that he finds his balance point. He'll score it for Sweden. And the Americans, they're just finding their goals a little bit easier, and that ultimately does pay a tax, doesn't it, on any player and any team, knowing that each time you score, you really have to break a team down, rather than a fast break goal like you just saw there for the U.S. So the crowd building inside Karaoke 1 Arena, 14,500 available capacity for wheelchair rugby. And this is where the wheelchair basketball has been. It's gone into the main arena, the biggest one in Rio, right next door. It's where the gymnastics was throughout the entirety of the Olympics. As that feed comes in, Lebrecht will cheer that one on. Andreas COLLIN will take that across the line. That's his first score of the matchup. So this is now center stage for day 2 and the remaining days of the wheelchair rugby. They awaited their turn to shine. They are now. And then, of course, what will be the main event for Brazilians? Well, that comes at the end of the day in the evening session. But right now, in the battle that we have, it's these two sides, both participating in London. Brazil not a part of those Paralympics 4 years ago. They're the 19th ranked team in the world. And Sweden, with the European Championship to their credit. They are a formed team, but in their first game to come up against Japan, that's no easy feat, because Japan's ranked number 3 overall by the International Wheelchair Rugby Federation. So there's just no easy games in this tournament. And some might have thought that Brazil being ranked 19, that they might be a walkover. That was anything but the story against Canada in day 1. The scoring, as you see so far, distribution pretty good for the Swedes. It's into JART. He gets a little bit of a spin and twist as he rides the rails across the line for another score. But it's the amount of scoring that comes to this lineup for USA. They got 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 different scores as opposed to the 5 now for Sweden. And then you got an AOKI who has just basically taken and done what he's wanted with the work that he's done today. So he's not had to be a part of this third quarter, I don't think. Maybe just early in the opening minutes. They changed so much and consistently. But across this line, it's another score for JART. That's his 9th. So AOKI was through 10 points, actually, at the end of that first quarter. He finished effectively on 11, and now he's on 14. So he played good part of the second period as well, but hasn't really been a big story in the second half. Hasn't needed to be. And in a short tournament where you've got 5 days of play and 5 games if you want to go all the way to the gold medal, it is about conserving energy too. Melton is not going to let him get away. He does. He just finds a little bit of respite there. And now it's a real power play to get to that goal line just in time. He comes back and then takes the ball from him. But there will be an inbound. You see what COHN thinks about that. He's less than impressed. He works so hard to get there. And then in comes that knifing right hand from Wheeler. Says, you don't really want that. I'll just knock it out. You can start that again. So they have 25 seconds, as you can see, on this scoring play. And maybe the Americans can get in the way here. They're going to elect just to hold their defensive zone and let SANDBERG just set up. SANDBERG with a very distinctive, well, he ties his hair up, doesn't he? Make sure to keep that from becoming an issue in the course of a match. You saw a great head of hair on Higuino, the Brazilian player. He's got real flair. Just a one-name player, Higuino. And he, with history in the sport, with his brother being involved in coaching it elsewhere in Brasilia, the capital city in Brazil. But this is really a stage for the wheelchair rugby program in Brazil to shine too. And he's just one of those great flamboyant players, equally as Braz. They're real scoring marksmen. Exciting team to watch. SANDBERG will take it and advances it up to HJERT. 1-2, and into the lap of Jansson. And they do, again, the real ladder play of advancing the ball just as quick as they get it. And you need to do that. You need to have some easy scores, because everything can't be like you're wheeling through treacle. And it's a little bit like that. The Americans have made it hard for Sweden. Say, yeah, you can score, but you're going to have to just go through us every single time. That'll wear you down. There's a quick transition score from PUDERBAUGH back out. So the speed game has been re-employed by the U.S. SANDBERG, a thoughtful player. Equally in this particular sport sometimes, it's not always that the thought is going to win, because you've got to get there. You've got to be in position to make the play. And you can just put your brawn, your physicality up against an opponent. Obviously, the full contact nature of the sport. There is PUDERBAUGH. He knows a player's coming to get him. He says, have some of that. I'm going to go regardless. And then the contact on the arm. He's just hungry to score. He's right on it. You can see it in his eyes. And the players, as they connect with each other, he got in a matchup with Salem, the French player, in day one, and they just were locking horns continuously. And in fairness, PUDERBAUGH came up second best on a few of them. Salem is a big, heavier man. He's a veteran of this game. He used to play wheelchair basketball for the French side. Now he plays wheelchair rugby, but he's 46 years old. But it doesn't stop him going one-on-one against these younger players. He would probably call them kids. Well, they're young men, aren't they? As a 20-year-old is now PUDERBAUGH, but if he can run and gun with some of the gunslingers in this tournament, he'll take it every time. He loves that competition. The United States with a timeout now. 1:40 remaining in his third period. Big hit coming across. That's a cross block like you might see in the National Football League or just American football. Maybe college is your choice. But the good movement going out in front, just trying to create that formalized barrier and lock in your opposition so they can't recover and try to close down the openings you have created for them. It's effectively like picking, isn't it, in basketball? It's in. And again, now underway, Chuck Melton, the 38-year-old, and you're seeing the youngster again, Josh Brewer. Just marvel at how smooth he is. He's in this scoring area, forcing Sweden to really just try to track him around. It looks a little bit like a game of Ring Around the Rosie right now, as it's just Jansson in his trail, just providing a tail for him, and he just keeps working against the grain. Just trying to kill this time, keeping SANDBERG off the floor, and he will score. Now SANDBERG comes back in, but he's got NEWBY right beside him, breathing down his neck, but he will inbound. And he gets away from NEWBY for a second. Where will he go to? That was a smart play, just the one touch. Sandberg comes around the cone. You can go anywhere from that full length of the line. Doesn't have to come through that 8-meter distance between the posts. And he just says to Glenn ADASZAK, just one touch just went on to me. Forget trying to catch it and then release it. Just touch it. And I'll just go with it. And then the play long and strong. Again, up to JANSSON waiting. A little bit of off-roading there from BREWER. Almost like riding the rails. You see some of the youngsters who just skateboarding at skateboard parks. He just takes that one on 2 wheels for a moment, and then he recovers his balance. ADASZAK is just doing the same thing that he saw his teammate do. Come outside those posts. Stretch out this American alignment in the forecourt. Make it a little bit more difficult for them to defend this entrance. But Sandberg needs some support. He's on his own, and because he's a 3.5, he's got a couple lower classified players out there. HJERT is his option. He's offloaded it to him. HJERT now has attracted double coverage. He's been sandwiched in there. And they're going to knock it away, the Americans. There's still time, but just a couple seconds. This is going to be tough. And they've called timeout. Oh, it's contact on the arm. So JANSSON, this could be another score for US with the inbound here. JANSSON frustrated. They were hoping to make better of it. So with the player advantage, looks as though the US are just as happy though to inbound it and see themselves for a break for 2 minutes as they'll set themselves up for the 4th period. And there you see it. So a lead that they had at halftime has been increased by 1. It was 10, now it's 11 as they win that 3rd quarter, 13-12 to the US. And they're poised right now at the top of this group. But it's a match against Sweden that is the most important and pressing matter. After 3 periods of play, they're in control, 42-31, US ahead. And the match statistics, 15 turnovers from Sweden. That will not be great reading for Benoit Lebrecq as he looks back over the course of this match. The 8 steals as well, and just 1 more they get in that period. And the penalties really negate each other. There isn't much in that, but a strong quarter period from both. The most points and goals scored by Sweden in an 8-minute frame as yet in this matchup. They get 12. In their opening period, they had 10. Some good contact as well. And HJERT with the balance. He scores that one. Got to have both wheels down and in control. And PUDERBAUGH just releases that ball out in front of him as he enjoys just the speed and the power game. Getting that ball loose. And then as well, lowering the boom, making sure that every Swedish player knows he's out there at all times. He just carves into his Swedish attacker right there and says, I got a line and I'm going somewhere. If I got to run over you, I'm going there. There again, confirmation of the score, 42-31. And the Americans in blue, white, and red, awaiting the blue and yellow of Sweden. So it's 4 against 3 to start. You're seeing JANSSON still in that penalty box area. It's not until they score, so it's a 1-minute penalty overall to JANSSON. And if they can keep him off the floor, make the other 3 players work harder, it's a little bit what's going on right now. BREWER, he looks about as confident as any player that he could score whenever he wants. Likes to handle the ball though too. He takes the duties and scores another one for the US. He's got a half dozen. So PUDERBAUGH with 6, BREWER equally the same. Wheeler has 6, and then AOKI 14. Melton 3, SCATURRO 4, NEWBY's got 2, and then equally both McBride and COHN with a goal each. As this for JANSSON. JANSSON has worked his way up the scoreboard. He's the leader right now for Sweden. He's got 11, and second is HJERT at 9, followed by NORLIN at 8, the captain. one more time as he just almost looks as though he's just coming on to the highway there. On the on-ramp, as you see him just pick up speed, he accelerates to just get right up to full measure. And actually a great response, though, from SANDBERG to just track him and stay right beside him. And then he gets the hand on the ball, and that leads to the 50-50 call, the possession arrow. And ADASZAK has come over here now. Makes that inbound play. And some new movement. The 53-year-old for Sweden just can't make the play he wants to. That is Loa RISSMAR, who tries to release it but can't. As again, there is BREWER. He gets a steal as a result of that play. SANDBERG having to lean away from the back stretched arm of MELTON. Well, that is NEWBY out there, number 9. And SANDBERG just delivering the instructions. Says, I need the ball right in my clutches. What I'd also need is somebody to provide a block against these Americans, because it seems like there's more than just 4 of them out here. It's a great shot there of the chairs of these athletes, and just look at how many knocks and marks and scuffs and scrapes are on them. It's across the line, well taken, SANDBERG. That's rather effortless for him. So, but equally, he only has 4 goals. So for a player of a 3.5 classification that has had as much floor time today as SANDBERG, it indicates he has 13 minutes, but he's got a lot more than that, I think. He'll catch up at the end of this quarter, which is officially what his floor time has been, but he's played at least, I would say, half of the match, and you do need more offensive return from a 3.5. That's a difference between these two nations. So waiting to provide some support there. The length of the floor, SANDBERG will go. He winds, he carves, and he ultimately penetrates that goal line once again for another score. So that'll take him to 5. And it's turned over by BREWER in that instance that leads to the conversion. So he's got it again. He'll do a couple spin moves out of there. And this is impressive. He did all the work really in the backcourt to create that opening. By the time he gets free, he scores again. So RISSMAR was the scorer on that last play. That's his first. So a different option now, as he is officially the eldest player in this matchup. He's 53. My apologies. Tomas Eriksson is 56. So the average age of Sweden is 38. So they are an aging side. You've got 2 players over the age of 50. And for the United States, you just have the 1 player over the age of 40, Jason Regier, 41 years of age. He's a 0.5. So youth, not always the determinant of success necessarily, but it does help having the young bodies and the younger frames, less miles on their tires, out there and working. And this is another one of the youngsters bringing the rejuvenation of the national program for United States. They are the only team, the only nation that has medaled in all of the Paralympic tournaments. So I said earlier that this was the 5th version of the wheelchair rugby tournament at the Paralympic Games. It is. The test event was 1996 in Atlanta before it became officially sanctioned in 2000 in Sydney. But as far as being recognized as an international Paralympic sport, that happened in 1994 by the IPC. That's a great decoy move. by Sandberg. He just throws it out there, pulls it back in, tucks it in his pocket, and then just pots it over for Jansson to score it. So that's the story, and it's not a very long story, the history of it, but the sport was invented in the 70s by Canadians and then migrated down for the Americans to play, and then over the waters, and Great Britain pick it up, and those were really the first three nations involved in spearheading and creating the sport. 77, it was kind of seen as, initially had a little bit of an ice hockey element to it, but obviously the wheelchairs needed to be instrumental, so it becomes an indoor sport, and then obviously then playing on effectively a basketball court is what this is, a field of play, but it works well as Sandberg now has across the line again, so he's starting to move his tally up, but is it a little too late, as it's 10 points still inside of 5 minutes remaining in this match, and Lebrecht is keeping his concentration solely on the task at hand, but behind those eyes, he knows that this could be a waning prospect right now, but they've been able to turn this over, I think, just pushing the American out, and they're going to allow the substitutions. So this for the Americans, Lee Fredette coming back in. PUDERBAUGH is also waiting, but they'll utilize a timeout before they substitute their personnel. They're counting down inside. Look at that left hand. He goes up. It's almost like the Statue of Liberty, just that full extension to get that ball and to get the hands on it. Very impressive score from Josh Brewer there. The full length as he just almost pulls that one out of the clouds. It's right in traffic. And three Swedish players around him. They were as close to him as bark to a tree. And he just goes up and plucks it right out of the sky with that long arcing pass in. And I don't care who you are, just feeling the body pressure of the players around you and equally their presence to be able to concentrate fully to get that into your only option, which is your left hand. It's outstanding play. So the substitution, off goes the elder statesman of the side, RISSMAR. They had him down for a goal officially on our stat line here. They've since wiped that off for him. So the trigger finger of the statistician giving the elder player the benefit of it, but when it came down to it, they probably just assigned across for a moment. Was an American score. Now it's Tomas HJERT who's gone to double digits, so keeping track with all of the changes in this sport, much like it is in wheelchair basketball. Got to really be on point all the time. And this another score, they'll take it. The Americans and Fredette, that's going to be his first, that's officially. So the only player not to score is Jeff Butler for the Americans. There's obviously a little over half the team, 8 scores. Actually officially 9 Sweden that have not recorded a goal. So this distribution throughout the entire lineup for USA is just what the doctor ordered. They'll be very pleased about that. Here comes PUDERBAUGH aggressively just trying to work and break down the Swedish side. HJERT will pick this up. He's got to throw on the brakes. Does well. He just gets into a tight area and finds a way. He gets one reprieve. And the feed across to Jansson. So that all about control from Tomas HJERT as PUDERBAUGH takes Jansson and pops him. You see him elevated up off the field of play. And Brewer, that's an awkward fall, that one. I wonder whether he looks to be in trouble. And not only has he fallen, which is an issue, but I think he may have injured himself there. just the way his shoulder was, the way he fell, the way he tried to brace it. We'll just watch here now as he gets picked up. He's certainly wincing in pain, and you can see the extension of that shoulder. That's always the issue when the shoulder is fully out trying to brace the fall. It's not generally the elbow, it's the shoulder socket that takes the weight of the fall. He's extended here. That's an awkward one. He maybe hyperextends that elbow. I'm not going to speculate too much, but you see immediately the reaction of pain, and that's an exhale that suggests that maybe he might take a breather here. They're already attending that left shoulder. And so PUDERBAUGH comes to break up proceedings, as they're just going to see how he's feeling. So that brings about the call. That's a penalty to Tomas HJERT as he just catches him, spins him, and puts him in that vulnerable position. So falling is all part of it, but you can see he's just trying to feel that shoulder a little bit, trying to hitch that elbow, and it seems to be all right. He nods and says, well, just give me the ball. I'm going to get on with things here. Well, he looks fine, but you see that expression on his face. It was potentially a moment, and the Americans can ill afford him. I think if they're going to go on and medal and maybe go back onto the top of the podium again in this tournament, from what we've seen, they're going to need all the elements of their side. This is a long advancing play and just a little too strong. It gets away. And it'll be HJERT who can't receive that extensive pass. So he says, not to worry. I know you tried. And Brewer back scoring again. You'll feel good about that. Probably in those moments when you get a little bit stunned, shocked with the possibility of an injury. It's always relieving to get back scoring again. And he doesn't look to be too phased. It's a long play again, this time for Jansson, and he's done well being that long option. He's like a wide receiver. He goes out for a 40-yarder, and he'll do the cut in. He'll do the route for the goal line generally, as he's got 14, and he leads this side today. PUDERBAUGH and these two young players continue just to keep this score line 10 points ahead for the United States. And now they are ushering in the substitutions. A fallen player with the staff coming out to get him. This is PUDERBAUGH who goes down. And probably better there. He tucks the shoulder in underneath rather than trying to break the fall. And you see LeBrecq getting hot. And in fairness, the referee probably just needs not to overhandle that one there, because what you do is you just inflame the coach. You make your point with him, and he understands that I've drawn the line. But continuing to have the hand up and almost to a degree settling the coach down with that visual reminder, it almost sometimes can be deemed as a little bit patronizing, and it can inflame the situation. Of course, LeBrecq is frustrated, and he knows right here, ultimately, they've lost their chance to compete for a medal the way things have shaped out in this matchup. And that might sound strong, but you just look at the construction of this tournament. It's a sprint, and equally, you're going to have to be able to sprint it whilst also looking left and right, because there could be a surprise element still yet in this story. But there are definitely the top 5 nations that you can see already forming in this tournament, and they will give each other fits. There's another great match coming up right after this one. So Tomas HJERT will control this ball play. And at this stage right now, when you're inside of 2 minutes remaining in the match, if you're delayed in trying to score, That's in as much acceptance from the players out on the field of play that the result has been determined. It's really just about trying to manage these aspects of the game, the re-entrance out onto the floor of the American player. So a timeout being utilized by Gumbert as he just wants to make sure with a minute 49, they understand that nothing silly is going to go on here. We're going to carry on and see this match through across the line in the manner in which we started it, and we're going to keep focused on the task at hand, which is about using this match as a stepping stone, another rung in the ladder. They will, without doubt, have designs on a gold medal here in Rio. PUDERBAUGH, again, just loves to crush any opposition that wants to get in his way. He just throws on, and as much leaves a skid mark there from the rubber right on the sponsorship logo right there. And he thought he was going to get around the end, but he holds up, and you see he prefers obviously the tape to making contact with his wheelchair. Every player a little bit different depending on their impairment and what's their comfort level. You can see the sweat out there. That's an issue. But it's getting a grip on that wheel, and they just drive. It's a real sprint because they can get that ball and have it in their lap, or equally, as you've seen, where they throw it ahead. And it is just as much a full sprint for glory sometimes. And you can see these one-on-one battles amongst the top players in the world. They really like to test each other. So this, the calm element of the end of a match here, almost a little bit anticlimactic now. It started in a flurry in that opening quarter, and it looked at that time with a 14-10 lead that Sweden would be able to hang tough, and you saw how Lebrecht was responding to things. The Swedish coach, he really was asking for more from his side, and a couple turnovers that they needed to make the most of. But how about this from Brewer? He's gone now. He's the leading scorer in the match with 15. He just quietly come out and done that. Says officially he's got 16 minutes of play in the entire 32. That's PUDERBAUGH, what he loves to do. Loves to come in. He tries to ram up against Sandberg and almost climbs up the side of his chair. But he's the one that goes down. And he doesn't seem to mind. He loves to play at breakneck speed, full throttle, and forget the score, forget who you are, forget any of the above. It's just me against you, man. And this time he comes up a little bit short, but he will be back, and he doesn't mind. You gotta love an athlete who is always willing to just lay it on the line and bring it. There's not a play that I've seen him be involved with yet where I have thought to myself, he's kind of only gone 75% into that. Everything is full tilt. Here he goes again. He'll just break away from Sandberg. He unleashes himself with that pass and has a look up at the scoreboard, equally himself. No smiles though, it's all business as he has recorded the 54th goal today for the United States, and it's his 7th for himself personally. So this, the last minute. It's been pretty even keel, releasing up to HJERT across that center line. They've worked well off each other, but again, it's the depth and equally the athleticism, in fairness to the Americans. They have a speed game, and they've just got an energy about them that is relentless. It just keeps coming in waves. They enjoy the physicality equally as well. They're looking for a feed central. Oh, going back on both of those back wheels. A little bit of a catwalk. Takes across the line right into his lap. And Thomas here. 12 now he has goals in the match, and that will be the expiration of the final seconds of the 32 minutes played in day 2 competition. This is a Group B matchup in the preliminary round, and now the United States, after 2 matches, really set themselves up, but it's a scoreline. They win by 10.